A very warm welcome to Africa. Good morning. We are broadcasting the news, making headlines across Africa on a Wednesday morning. My name is Aina Raizakoya, and alongside me is Ashwin Berry.
And something I wish was alongside us would be some brownies, because today is Brownie Day. Brownies, that rich, decadent, purely hedonistic blend of cake and cookie that feels amazing in the mouth and leaves the taste buds craving for more. While the classic brownie still reigns supreme, now there are what seems to be like a million different derivations of how to make these delicious treats. But there's one thing they all have in common: levels of chocolate so thick and rich they should be illegal. Here's a video on Brownie Day.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. In our top story, Ethiopia government claims recapture of key towns. Ethiopia's government announced it had recaptured 2 strategic towns from rebel fighters, the latest raid in a rapid series of battlefield victories claimed by forces loyal to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Desi and Kabolocha lie in the Amhara region on a key highway to Addis Ababa, and their reported takeover by the Tigray People's Liberation Forces at the end of October had sparked fears the rebels would march to the capital. Last week, the government said pro-Abiy forces had recaptured the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Lalibela, which had fallen to TPLF fighters in August, as well as the town of Shewa Robit, which lies only 220 kilometers from Addis Ababa by road. Abiy, who won the Nobel Peace Prize 2 years ago, announced that last month that he would be heading to the battleground following a series of advances claimed by the rebels, as fighting reportedly raged on the least 3 fronts. Since his declaration, the government has announced the recapture of several towns, including Lalibela, which is famed for its 12th century rock-hewn churches.
Spiral of death in DRC, dozens killed in Ituri conflict. DRC and neighboring Uganda this week launched a military operation in Ituri as well as in adjacent North Kivu against Allied Democratic Forces rebels that Kampala accuses of being behind deadly attacks on its soil. From 21 to 28 November, we counted at least 123 civilians killed, said Pierre Boisile, coordinator of the Kivu Security Barometer, whose researchers are active in conflict zones. And at a camp for the displaced in Jugu, raids have forced tens of thousands of people already driven from their villages by violence to flee again, leaving everything behind. An attack on a nearby site for the displaced on 28 November killed at least 22. Throughout that week, thousands of people emerged from the bush and forest to gather in Ro, a few kilometers away around a base of the UN peacekeeping force in the DRC, MONUSCO. About 75,000 people survived there today under the protection of 150 troops from Bangladesh and Guatemala. MONUSCO spokesman Matthias Gilman said the force was doing its best to support the tens of thousands of Congolese who have found refuge near our bases.
Ramaphosa criticizes greedy Western countries for handling of Omicron variant. President Cyril Ramaphosa has criticized travel ban imposed on parts of Africa by Western countries because of the outbreak of Omicron, a variant of COVID-19. Ramaphosa, who was speaking at the Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security, said the travel ban signaled Western hypocrisy. The president said that another disappointment thrown our way. When South African scientists discovered Omicron, the new variant, they immediately took the responsibility of informing the entire world that a new variant has been found. They have also said to us, base your decision on science, but when the moment comes for them to be more scientific, they are not. They resort to their own self-interest. Ramaphosa said, calling for travel bans to be lifted immediately. They ordered more vaccines than their population required, and when we wanted vaccine, they kept giving us the crumbs from the table. The greed they demonstrated is quite disappointing, particularly when they say they are our partners because our lives in Africa are just as important as their lives in Europe, North America, and all over.
Sharp words from the South African president. Now in Mozambique, hundreds of women and girls abducted. Since 2018, an armed group linked to the Islamic State has kidnapped and enslaved more than 600 women and girls in Mozambique's northern Cabo Delgado province. Human Rights Watch said today Mozambican and regional forces have rescued some of them, but many remain missing. The group, known locally as Al-Sunnah wa Jama'a and Al-Shabaab, forced younger, healthy-looking and lighter-skinned women and girls in their custody to marry their fighters, who enslave and sexually abuse them. Others have been sold to foreign fighters for between $600 and $1,800 US. Abducted foreign women and girls in particular have been released after their families paid ransom. Mozambican authorities and international and regional partners, including the Southern African Development Community, should provide rights-respecting, gender-sensitive, child-sensitive, and dignified reintegration and rehabilitation services, including comprehensive post-rape care to rescued women and girls, Human Rights Watch said. The authorities should also fully investigate and appropriately prosecute Al-Shabaab leaders and fighters for abductions, child and forced marriages, rape and sexual violence, enslavement, and other gender-based crimes in violation of international and Mozambican law.
Over 156 million COVID-19 vaccination administered across Africa. As of the 7th of December 2021, confirmed cases of COVID-19 from 55 African countries reach over 8.7 million, while over 156.5 million vaccinations have been administered across the continent. Reported deaths in Africa reach over 223,000 and 8.1 million people have recovered. South Africa has the most affected cases of over 3 million and 89,000 people have died. The other most affected countries are Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Kenya. The numbers are compiled by the Center for System Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University using statistics from the World Health Organization and the other international institutions, as well as national and regional public health departments.
WHO Director General pained by racist cartoon depicting South Africa carrying Omicron to Europe. The World Health Organization Director General said he was pained by a racist cartoon carried recently in a Spanish newspaper that depicted South Africans carrying Omicron to Europe. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said on Hoi Twitter account, "It pains me that shows of racism like this still plague the challenges facing the world today. Caricaturing people crammed in a boat bringing a virus to Europe is disgusting. We can only advance as one Earth Globe Europe-Africa community by promoting solidarity, not stigma." Cartoonist Yavi Salado and the newspaper has since apologized, according to The Citizen. The cartoon was printed on 28 November. Shortly after South African scientists discovered the Omicron variant, there were extensive travel bans placed on South Africa. These included European Union, Seychelles, Japan, and the USA. Certain parts of South Africa are currently experiencing a fourth wave, with almost 40% of the population fully inoculated against the virus. The country is edging closer to a 90,000 deaths since the start of the pandemic.
Dirty Banks ZWCC boss accuses financial institution for aiding corruption. The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission chairperson Lois Mataba-Moyo has accused local banks of colluding with corrupt individuals to clean up ill-gotten wealth. She said the banks are guilty of accepting huge sums of money obtained through corruption, thereby legitimizing the cancerous vice. She said this while addressing a financial crimes indaba in Harare. While banks and other financial intermediaries currently have a duty to ensure that, for instance, due diligence is taken by investors coming to do business in Zimbabwe, it is a known fact that some of them are failing or neglecting to do this. Mataba-Moyo said many banks continue to provide to the corrupt with many banks continue to provide the corrupt with a haven of stash their dirty money. This loophole is due to both overall lacks of enforcement and anti-money laundering regulations and other ways that banks currently undertake due diligence. It goes without saying the financial sector is a critical player in the fight against corruption. Money laundering and illicit financial flows have become the order of the day. We hear and talk about this daily. We read about it in the media daily, and therefore we felt it is important to have specific discussions on illicit financial flows in Zimbabwe and how to foster anti-money laundering compliance. The Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission will not hesitate to use its constitutional and statutory authority to arrest any perpetrators of financial crimes.
Now in our next story, Kenya horror as policeman kills wife, 5 others in Kabete shooting spree. A policeman killed his wife and 5 other civilians before taking his own life in Kabete. The gruesome incident that has left 7 people, including neighbors and border riders, dead was confirmed by Kabete Sub-County Police Commander Francis Wahome. The early morning shooting spree happened at J Apartments near N Market, where the police officer identified as Constable Benson Imbatu lived with his wife Carol. Sometime after 12 a.m., the officer, armed with an AK-47, went on the rampage where he shot and killed his wife and 5 others, including 2 border riders, one of whom is still undergoing treatment at Kenyatta National Hospital. On arrival, officers from the station found that Mr. Imbatu had shot his wife dead and that he later went on a shooting spree that led to more fatalities. It was not immediately clear what sparked the officers' shooting spree. Mr. Wahome said investigations are ongoing to ascertain the cause of the incident.
Mozambique Ishura Brito dos Santos named iHealth Hero 2021. The UK-based International Agency for Prevention of Blindness has named Ishura Brito dos Santos iHealthcare Hero 2021. In total, 81 personalities were nominated amongst doctors and non-clinicals who work for the prevention of blindness in several countries around the world. Ishura Brito dos Santos is a professor and the director of the optometry course at the Faculty of Health Science in Luro University. It is a great honor for me to be recognized for the work I've been developing and coordinating in Mozambique. First of all, I thank God for giving me health, strength, and direction. I also thank the commitment of all optometrists working in the optometry department at Universidad Lorio and the colleagues in the Mozambican Association of Optometrists who have tirelessly supported the cause we all embrace, said Brito dos Santos. President Nyusi has also congratulated Brito dos Santos on the nomination.
Now, in the last of our top stories, water to be focus of AFDB strategy for the next 4 years. The African Development Bank's new water strategy paper comes into effect against the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change. Entitled Towards a Water Secure Africa, it will help ensure better access to water for all Africans by 2025. Sub-Saharan Africa remains the region where the phenomenon is most worrying, with 400 million people without a safe source of drinking water, according to the World Bank. Water is essential for life, health, thorough hygiene and sanitation, dignity, empowerment, environmental sustainability, peace and prosperity, says Oswald Chanda, the AFDB's Director of Water and Sanitation Development. In its 2021 to 2025 strategic paper, the AFDB defines 4 areas of intervention. It will have to ensure integrated and sustainable management of water resources through the assessment of resources and their ecosystems, support institutions and the environment in general. AFDB is also focusing on improved water management for agriculture and investments that support fisheries activities and are supporting ecosystems. The new document aligns with the bank's high 5 strategic priorities in Africa, which are to light and power the continent, feed it, industrialize it, integrate it, and improve the quality of life for African people. The AFDB's new strategy will thus contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and the African Union Agenda 2063. All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories. After the break, we'll be having a guest we've had before, Dr. Clemens von Dodera, who is from the Hans Seidel Foundation. Stick around for that conversation and so much more on Africa Good Morning. Now, Dr. Clemens von Dodera has been on this show before. He is the resident representative of the Hans Seidel Foundation in Namibia. Dr. von Dodera is a forester who previously served as the European representative of the Central Association of European Forest Owners, CEPF. He hails from Germany and studied agricultural science at the University of Stellenbosch. Good morning, sir, and welcome back to Africa Good Morning.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Good morning to all our viewers.
Sir, being the head of the Hans Seidel Foundation, you have spent a lot of time and energy on creating awareness for sustainable forestry in Namibia, especially in the Namibian Parliament. Could you kindly tell us more about your work?
Yeah, not only in Parliament, but especially also in the affected regions. But in Parliament, we actually, for the second time, we hosted a public parliamentary engagement together with the Office of the Speaker on the 2nd of November. We went and we had a meeting with the Standing Committee for the Management of the Natural Resources. We invited speakers across the board from all walks of life or different perspectives on stakeholders around forestry. So from a environmental perspective, from a legal perspective, from an economic perspective, and even from an entrepreneurial perspective. So we asked each speaker to talk about the great of forestry in Namibia, and in this particular instance, we zoomed in on the issue of climate change. How are our forests in Namibia? How are they affected by climate change, and how are we affecting climate change the way we're treating our forests? And that was very much well. Oh, sorry. Maybe just one sentence here. This was extremely well received as well from the committee, and yeah, we were quite excited to share the information. And at the end of the day, obviously, the idea is to have those events, things to contribute to the knowledge. So at the end of the day, the members of parliament can make a better or an informed choice when deciding about new laws and regulations.
All right. Apart from Windhoek, what other area have you been at with the awareness campaign?
Well, the project is actually called Promoting Sustainable Forest Management in the Kavango and Zambezi Namibia. And obviously, so we're zooming in those regions. So Kavango West, Kavango East, and the Zambezi region. And so we zooming in, or we went a couple of times already now this year to community forests and the management committees. We hosted workshops, training workshops to raise awareness around the importance of the forests they have, and what they can do to actually better manage them, to supervise them as management committee members, to fulfill their obligations. And at the end of the day, a good message we got was we see that our forests are deteriorating and that we're losing our forests, and that this is not healthy for us, for our community, for our environment, and that we need to do more to protect our forests, not only for the sake of protecting them, but to ensure that generations also can benefit from the ecosystem services, fruits, timber, whatever it might be, that the future generations can also enjoy those benefits the forests provide.
All right, now, do you have a feeling that this awareness campaign can generally contribute towards finding alternatives in Namibia, especially on the backdrop of COP26?
It does. I think now for the second time in the National Determined Contributions, Namibia has pledged to reduce deforestation and to actually start a program of forestation or reforestation, meaning that the cutting of trees should be halted and managed more sustainably, and at the same time also fresh trees planted, new trees are being planted either on existing land or land which is idle, is forested with trees, so that there are more forests ultimately. Over time, Namibia has lost, since 1990, has lost about a quarter of its forest. We used to have around about 8.8 million hectares. Now we're down to 6.6 for whatever reasons. That's felt fires, that's cultivate for agriculture, that's simply cutting trees for the timber, and reasons there are. But at the end of the day, where there's rain, with our forest, there's rain, and that's the bottom line. And I think Namibia, as one of the most climate change impacted countries around the world, has to look at that plan to. But to answer your question, has that trickled down in action? Well, that's still to be seen. I think COP26 is still relatively new, but I'm confident also with the move of the Directorate of Forestry from the Ministry of Agriculture to the Ministry of Environment and Tourism, now Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism, I think is move, and I really hope that with an integrated approach, the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Tourism actually trickled or can effect some action to have forests reforested, afforested, and better protected. But as I said, not only for the sake of protecting it, but also to make sure that there's some harvest, as it has been set out in the Constitution, that we should use our natural resources for the benefit of today's generations, but also tomorrow's generations.
All right, what are the next steps and where do you see your role? And for that matter, in whose court is the ball right now?
I think it's in everybody's court. We all can do our part to be more conscious about the importance of our forests. And from our end, we will continue with our project, sustainable forest management. We'll continue to engage with the management committees of the community forests. We will with the holders, with the traditional authorities, with the leaders in the north, also, regional authority councillors, etc., to raise awareness on this issue, essentially a rally for support on this issue.
Yes,
And at the same time, also, we still continue with our awareness raising campaign called Think Namibia. To promote sustainable forest management on our websites, on social media, but also we'll engage makers here in rally for support on this issue. Ultimately, what we need for Namibia
Dodra, I'm
is...
sorry, I'm going to have to stop
Yes.
you there. We are out of time. But thank you for making sure that you've packed as much expertise and knowledge in the limited time that we did have. Thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning.
Pleasure is mine, and thanks for having me.
All right, that was Dr. Dodra, the resident representative of the Hans Seidel Foundation in Namibia, and we were talking about the state of forestry in Namibia, also on the backdrop of COP26. This is To Africa Good Morning. We'll take a short break, and after that, we'll take a trip to Zambia.
Strike it gold and win 5,000 Namibian dollars in cash with Neo Paints. Simply buy Neo Paints products from the selected range and stand a chance to get one of 12 mystery buckets filled with gold paint. All 12 winners will each get 3 extra paint buckets equal to their purchase. One to replace the gold paint, the second to use on your project, and the third to give to a charity of their choice. One winner can score another 10,000 Namibian dollars by showing us your creative use of the golden paint. The best project wins the cash. Offer is valid from 27 September to 18 December at your favorite hardware store nationwide. Visit us at neopaints.com for more competition details and follow us on Facebook for weekly competition updates. Neopaints, a coat of excellence.
Happy Wednesday, and thank you very much for joining us. Zambia and Malawi have agreed to complete the construction of a border railway line connecting two neighboring countries. Master Mike Sichula has this story and more. Good morning, Master Mike. Please take it away.
Good morning, Africa. Yes, indeed. President Hakainde Hichilema yesterday held bilateral talks in Malawi with his counterpart, President Lazarus Chakwera, where they called for simplified border controls and removing all bottlenecks across the border trading between Zambia and Malawi. So from time immemorial, Zambia and Malawi have been pushing for simplified trade between the two countries because of the proximity to each other and the number of people that go into Malawi and also come into Zambia. So President Hakainde Hichilema has picked this from what his other counterparts have done, President Lungu, President Lupia Banda, Amanawasa, and including late Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, to ensure that Zambia and Malawi begins to trade more between, so that they increase trade between the two countries to improve the welfare of the two peoples in the two countries. So that meeting was held yesterday, and they have agreed that by the first quarter of 2022, this border ports, the Mwami Mchinji border ports should be up and running to ensure that the vision of people, the other presidents, is actualized.
All right, okay, Mike, we're going to try and keep our answers as brief as possible, please. Following the discovery of the new Omicron variant, the health authorities have scaled up surveillance to ascertain how widespread the variant is across the country.
Yes, on the 3rd of December, Zambia discovered the new variant, and from that time when it was discovered, the number of cases have increased, whereby in the past 1 week, more than 170 new cases were recorded compared to 73 the previous week, which shows a 132% increase in the number of cases. Then health authorities have also gone ahead to quarantine about 60 people who may have physical contact with the 3 cases that have been recorded so far. then health authorities have continued to intensify awareness creation to ensure that more people observe COVID guidelines.
All right, please tell us about the Zambian top female boxer who's returning to the ring. And lastly, a brief rundown for the viewers, the performance of Zambia under-17 team at the COSAFA game in Maseru, Lesotho.
Okay, Catherine Piri is returning to the boxing world next year on the 29th of January to pick it up from where she left off. Her last fight was in 2017, has been performing well at the regional COSAFA games in Maseru, Lesotho. The women's team won the title, and today the under-17 boys team are going to face Angola in the other final to determine if they're going to win. And according to the Football Association of Zambia president, is saying the exploits of the ladies under-17 and the boys under-17 is because of the good foundation that has been laid in grassroots football.
All right. Well, even with limited time, you always bring us a comprehensive report. Thank you for that, Mr. Mike Sichula.
Thank you very much, Africa. Good morning. Bye-bye.
All right. It's always good having you here. This is Africa Good Morning. Next up, weather.
Win instant cash this spring with Top Score Instant. To enter, buy any new pack of Top Score Instant 1 kg or 500 grams from any store countrywide and stand a chance to win one of 2 grand prizes of $20,000 Namibian or one of 12 weekly prizes of $5,000 Namibian. SMS Instant to 24442. Competition ends 30 November 2021. T's and C's apply. Top Score Instant, a proud product of Namib Mills.
The beauty of Africa Good Morning is that we have many multidisciplinary artists. So sometimes Ari Hogat will give us the sport as you just saw, but that's not what's happening today. He's actually starting with a different S, and that S is South Africa, and he's bringing us all the essential news from there. Good morning, Ari. How's it going?
Yes, very good morning, Ashwin. Yes, nice to talk. Nice to talk from Cape Town.
All right. Now, in your first story, mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations currently remain a major point of discussion in South Africa for teacher unions, universities, and corporate companies as the effect of the Omicron variant increases. Could you please get into this?
Yes, it's a massive reality still. New cases about 13,000 at the moment, the last 24 hours. Just the news from South Africa is that there's more focus at the moment on mandatory vaccinations. There's more talk about that. The teachers union in South Africa has made it public that they're discussing it at a higher level. And so it will be discussed how the schools handle this situation. And then also the National Economic Development and Labour Council is also, they made statements that implicate, they say they support restrictions of public gatherings and then only vaccinated employees to access workplace. So there's big calls to be made on mandatory COVID vaccinations in South Africa.
All right. The National Assembly yesterday debated the proposed amendment to the Constitution, which would allow land expropriation without compensation. Please tell us more.
It's been a discussion for 3 years, more than 3 years, 3.5 years. So it is an amendment to Section 25, so it's hotly debated. The ANC needed the DA and the EFF to vote with them on that. Or the one of the two. So both the DA and the EFF didn't vote with the ANC on this, so it wasn't passed. The ANC needed 2/3 majority to do that. Got 204 votes for and 145 against. Ironically, the EFF, they support the principle, but they want the wording to be different in that the land should be 100% state-owned. So that is the difference why the EFF didn't go with the ANC on that one. But the big statements made by the EFF afterwards saying that they support if people just go and get land in any way possible. So that's very irresponsible, I feel. So I think it needs to be discussed further, and it will be in future.
All right, from land to economy. The South African economy remains under pressure as the gross domestic product contracted by 1.5% in the third quarter. Could you please expand on this?
Yes, the GDP for the third quarter down by 1.5 percentage points. Just quickly, the GDP is just the value added in the time frame. It could be in products, etc., and services. But it was certain sectors were down in that time. So it's the SA trade, manufacturing, and agriculture also down. And obviously, the unrest in July did make a big difference in South Africa, the ability to add value for the country in that time.
Okay, government is starting to implement lifestyle audits from February next year to its ministries, premiers, and heads of departments. Please tell us more.
Yes, lifestyle audits are important. I think it's for accountability. It's a big importance for South Africa. There's been challenges widely known that people have been implicated in wrongdoings. So it's to make sure that the lifestyle matches the income. That goes from ministers to premiers to MECs and head of departments to indicate a very luxurious lifestyle. It's not that it's all the time the case, but it can be unfortunately the case. And there's been 42 people trained, officers, ethics officers trained to just investigate that and make sure that public servants are in agreement with their declared financial income, their lifestyle. That's what it's about.
Well, I'm sure my father would love to see my lifestyle audit. Now, in our feel-good story, a Northern Cape man showed great commitment, tenacity, and courage to overcome, listen to this list, paralysis, tragedy, and cancer to become a doctor. If that doesn't say superhero, what does?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ashwin. And just briefly, his name is Johan Haroff, and he started studying 8 years ago medicine. He was denied in South Africa because his marks was a bit low. That's him in the middle. His dad on the left there is also a doctor. He motivated him. So what he went through is in 2015, 2016, he lost 5 close friends and family to death. He went through a depression, and also he failed his third year. That was after he got into University of the Walter Sisulu in the Eastern Cape. And 2008 also, unfortunately, or 2018, he had a bus accident. He was in a bus accident. He had a fractured vertebrae, paralyzed from chest down. There he is in his wheelchair. He persevered, he went on, and then in his final year, 2019, diagnosed with cancer to top it all. But he went through that, and he achieved his, after 8 years of study. So to Isak Johan Haroff, truly an inspiration to all of us. Let's endure, and let's take the moment. 2022. Great inspiration.
Yes, the man said, not only will I live, I will also begin to save lives. Thank you, Ari, for bringing us the news from South Africa.
Big pleasure and a great one. Bye-bye.
All right, cheers. This is still Africa Good Morning, bringing you the news as you need it. Something you need to keep watch of is your pocket. So your economic news stories are up next. and will make it possible to reduce consumption of diesel for electricity production, thus reducing greenhouse gas emissions and contributing to Angola's energy transition, the oil company said. Solanova is Eni and Sonangol's joint venture to develop renewable energy projects and will be responsible for the engineering, procurement and construction of the plant, which is expected to come online in the fourth quarter of 2022.
Fuel storage drains a motorist of 2.4 billion Namibian dollars. Namibian motorists and businesses paid 2.4 billion towards the controversial National Fuel Storage Facility at Walvis Bay from 2018 October to this year. The government, through the Development Bank of Namibia, has received two loans, one of 2.8 billion and another of 1.5 billion from the African Development Bank. The fuel storage levy is among the taxes contained in every liter of petrol or diesel sold in the country. This was confirmed by Executive Director of Mines and Energy Simon Negumba last Tuesday. The last two loans were taken and used to fund the National Oil Storage Facility project. The repayment of the loan and financed by a fuel levy of 60 cents per liter on both control products, he said. The public is paying for this through every liter of petrol or diesel they buy. Some 98% rather per liter of petrol is paid towards the National Energy Fund fuel levy.
That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. As I said earlier, December is the time to watch those pockets. So check out our economic indicators up next. Thank you for staying with your #1 source for reliable African news, Africa Good Morning. It's time for us to dive straight into today's sports stories. And we start off with one of my favorite personalities of the year, Christine Mboma, who has been shortlisted for BBC Prize. Christine Mboma was named one of the BBC African Sports Personalities of the Year 2021 award nominees. The 18-year-old Namibian track and field sensation is one of 6 contenders for the accolade, chosen by a panel of journalists from Africa and the United Kingdom. The panel selected a shortlist based on the best African sporting achievements on the international stage in 2021 between January and September. The impact of the person's achievement beyond their particular sport was also taken into account. Mboma has had a sterling breakout year in which she scooped multiple international accolades to become an overnight global star. The Olympic 200-meter silver medalist was crowned the Athletics Weekly International Junior Female Athlete of the Year on Saturday.
With Hamilton and Verstappen neck and neck, F1 holds its breath. Formula One annus mirabilis has the ending it deserved, with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen on exactly the same number of points ahead of the weekend's winner-takes-all showdown in Abu Dhabi. Back in July, Verstappen had built up a cozy 32 points lead, but the momentum is now back at Mercedes, with Hamilton driving like a man with an unprecedented 8 world championship in his sight. The 36-year-old Briton and his Dutch rival, who is 12 years younger, have for the large part treated each other with respect. But after 20 races, the equivalent of driving from New York to London, the pair heads to Yas Marina, with the relationship seemingly at its lowest point. Mindful of the high stakes at play, his Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff expressed hope at the driver's crown would be decided by a clean fight on the track on Sunday.
In our next story, India's South Africa Cricket Tour fixtures announced. India will play test matches in Centurion, Johannesburg and Cape Town on their tour of South Africa, which starts later this month, Cricket South Africa announced on Monday. The first test will start at SuperSport Park in Centurion on December 26. The second test will be played at the Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg from January 3 to 7, with the final test scheduled for Newlands in Cape Town from January 11 to 15. With South Africa hit by travel restrictions following the discovery of the fast-spreading Omicron variant of coronavirus, CSA announced last week the tour will be played under strict biosecure conditions. It was announced last week the tour would be delayed and shortened because of the coronavirus situation. South Africa praised India for their solidarity in continuing with an ongoing 3-match, 4-day series between the A teams of the two countries currently being played in Bloemfontein, and for standing by their commitment to the test tour.
Novak Djokovic on Serbia team for ATP Cup in Australia. Rafael Nadal is missing. World number 1 Novak Djokovic was named in Serbia team on Tuesday for the ATP Cup in Sydney in January, after speculation about whether he would travel to Australia because of vaccination rules. The 20-time Grand Slam champion had cast doubt on whether he would defend his Australian Open title next month, refusing to reveal whether he was inoculated against coronavirus. However, he was listed as part of the 5-man Serbia team when the draw was made in Sydney for an event that will precede the opening Grand Slam this year. Rafael Nadal was missing, the Spanish fellow 20-time Grand Slam winner, last month, suggesting he would play an exhibition in Abu Dhabi this month, then another tournament before arriving in Melbourne for the Australian Open.
All right, that brings us to the end of our sports news updates. After this short break, your headlines. Every weekday, without fail, Africa Good Morning makes sure that it delivers right to you and your screen the very latest African news and the news happening all over the world. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, or if you need a recap, worry not. Here are the headlines. Ethiopia government claims recapture of key towns. Spiral of death in DRC, dozens killed in Ituri conflict. Ramaphosa criticizes greedy Western countries for handling of Omicron variant. Mozambique, hundreds of women, girls abducted. Angola, Sonangol Eni signed solar project contract. And in sport, Christine Mboma shortlisted for BBC Prize. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning, the Wednesday edition. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, you can post those lovely comments on Facebook and Twitter. It's at Africa Good Morning. We also have a website called One Up To. Please do visit us for more content that you love to see. On that note, it's all my love, all my light, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning.
Swera Jakanaka.